Hi, I'm Jason from Endless Wave Dynamics, where I'll be on the front line of your creative business battles. In today's episode, I'm interviewing my good friend, Ankush Jain. He's a coach, trainer, and public speaker specializing in relationships and the principles behind our state of mind. He, like me, runs a podcast and speaks at conferences all over the world and helps his clients to connect with others, both in business and in personal relationships. He's a certified clarity mentor and also trains other coaches to grow their businesses. I originally met Ankush a few years ago when he became part of an online mastermind group that I run, and I quickly realized how sharp and spot on his advice is, and we share very similar opinions when it comes to building relationships and how we connect to others. I figured I'd get him on the show to share some of his great advice. We're going to be talking about how most people believe that we're a fixed entity when it comes to our personalities and what we can do to challenge those beliefs. How we are all born with the ability to connect even though we don't believe that we have that skill. Ankush shows us how to uncover what we do have without building fake beliefs on top. And then we're going to go into how we filter ourselves more as we get older. And now as a child, we have all the creativity in the world and usually want to show it off. That's until it's beaten out of us. So we talk about the majority of people undervaluing their creativity, and Ankush shows us ways to strengthen our mindset enough to stop accepting no for an answer. And again, we touch on motivation being an excuse and how it's a lazy man's version of commitment. We talk about the power of just asking and reaching out, usually getting the ball rolling. Finally, it gives us the real key to providing authenticity and proper value services to your clients by being a trustworthy giver, not a taker. So enjoy this one with Ankush. Hi, I'm Jason from Endless Wave Dynamics, and I'm here online with my good friend Ankush. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Ankush.
Thanks, Jason. I describe myself as a coach, a trainer, and a public speaker. I was into the personal development world, or got into that self-growth world when I was at university about 15 years ago. And I really just was a kind of casual observer at first, and then got more into it, started reading books, started doing courses and taking different trainings. And I always really used to do it for myself. And about 4 years ago, I decided to do this professionally. I wanted to help others and help them learn what I'd learned. And along the way, I realized that I didn't know anything, and I've completely kind of changed my outlook on things and gone far, far deeper in terms of my own personal growth. And for the past 14 months or so, I've been doing it full time. So I quit my corporate job, said goodbye to London, and now I do this for a living. Predominantly, I work with men to help them show up more powerfully in the world, whatever that means to them. And all of my clients have different needs. I don't do a one-size-fits-all.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part of my business is I work with coaches to help them grow their business.
Sure.
I think the reason we connected is I also do a podcast on relationships. That seems to be something that I'm quite interested in. So happy to talk about that today, or anything else that you think might be relevant.
Yeah, sure. For me, what I see with creative people like artists, musicians, web designers, photographers, videographers, all these kind of creative fields. And I talk about it a lot, that you get so focused in on what it is that you're doing, your passion for making that creative product, that sometimes you forget that you have to go out and meet people to make a difference in your life. Like, I think that it's all about, everybody knows that saying, but people always just take it for granted that you're either good at meeting people or you're not, and that's the way it is for the rest of your life. People don't realize that you can make a difference in your life just by fine-tuning a few aspects of your social psychology. And I love the idea that you're a relationship coach, because to me that means that you can help my audience with their relationship skills and how we can even start going about these kind of things.
Yeah, I love the way that you set that up there, Jason. And I don't know how I come across on video. It's always different to when you meet people in person. But I can tell people that many years ago, this was not my strong point.
Uh-huh.
When I was a teenager, like many teenagers, I really struggled with any kind of relationship, whether it was with my family, whether it was with girls, whether it was with friends even.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't coming from a place where I was naturally gifted at relationships. I was really shy and insecure. Put me in a social situation in those days, and I would be really quiet and struggle. So it's kind of quite amusing in a way that, so many years later, here I am talking about relationships.
Same here.
The reason for that is because there's nothing special, but I've just spent a lot of time and energy kind of looking at, what makes good relationships, what helps us connect with people. And I've looked at all sorts of things from the weird and wonderful through to things that are now kind of leading edge psychology around connection and relationships. One of the biggest things that I found, and that I'd want to put across to your audience, because there's so much stuff out there about, you can Google how to have better relationships with people and you come out with, a million pages on Google. So what can I share that may be useful and maybe a little bit different for your audience? And the one thing that I overlooked for that decade that I was into personal growth and self-development before I decided to take this up professionally was really around my state of mind. It was really around where my head was at, because I thought I didn't really think about this consciously, but I thought I was a bit of a fixed entity. And, whatever, I was good at relationships, I was bad at relationships, whatever it was, and I was at a certain level. And what I've started to realize is that actually I've got the whole range of abilities. There are some times when I've been really, really good at connecting with people, and I've just clicked with people and I've got on well. And there are other times where, for whatever reason, I've been in a bad mood, I'm just having an off day, I can't connect with anyone. And, I don't know if you've ever had this, Jason, but I've certainly had it where I've met people and perhaps my first impression wasn't great. And then I'll meet them again a few weeks, a few months, a few years later, and I'm back to my, normal self. And they're like, oh, wow, we get on well. And they go, I've got to admit something to you. The first time I met you, I didn't like you. And it just goes to show that we're not really this fixed entity and we're always in flux. Now, what I see deeper than that is, as I've explored this for myself and share this with my clients, is basically we've all got inside of us, and we're all born with the ability to connect. It's not something that other people have that we don't. It may look that way. It used to look that way to me, but it's simply not the case. And, if we look at small children, they have no problems in connecting with each other. And when we were that young, we had no problems connecting with each other. We just got in our own way. We got loads of thinking about it, and we got insecure or shy or put lots of meaning on it. But it's really good to know that it's not something we need to learn per se. It's just inside of us, and perhaps we need to uncover it.
Do you think it's something that maybe we experience as we're growing up, that we start putting filters on ourselves maybe by the way that people judge us, and we may be ostracized for something, we might be scared of being kicked out of our social tribe in a way by saying something wrong, so we start filtering ourselves in ways. So that can be scary then, to go up to someone that we don't know and put ourselves out there as we are, as genuine as possible. It's hard to do that. We're almost on edge when meeting new people. That's why it's a scary thing.
Absolutely. I mean, your audience seems to be a lot of creative people. And, when I talk about creativity a little bit, which I do from time to time, I talk about the same thing, that if you get a bunch of 5-year-olds who are all drawing and you say, who wants to show your picture? Everyone's, they've got their hands up. Me, I'll go. No one thinks that they're not creative. And then at some point, some little mind virus, some little thought comes into our heads that, oh, little Johnny's picture's good. He's an artist, and yours could do better. And then we start to differentiate ourselves. And all of a sudden we create this belief or this thought, I'm not an artist, I'm not creative. But it's not true.
I've heard it so many times from people that are not musicians. Oh, I've not got a musical bone in my body. Is it that, or is it you're just scared? You're scared of trying. You're scared of what people might think if you try. Everybody has to go through certain steps while they're learning a skill. If I start painting tomorrow, my painting is going to be pretty bad. But it's not that I'm not a potential painter. I could be an amazing painter in 2-3 years' time if I put my mind to it, like I put my mind to other skills. People are often really scared by being ostracized, I think.
Yeah, and what I'm not saying is that there's no place for natural ability. Of course there is. I wouldn't say that, we're all going to be, master painters or world-class musicians or anything else. Having said that, I think we underestimate just simply the power of taking action, showing up, trying. And, we're talking about relationship today. It's the same in relationship as it is with whatever creative job that anyone is doing or hobby that they've got. I've got a friend of mine who's very creative. She's a graphic designer. Now, when she started out doing graphic design, she wasn't all that great. She loved it. She went and trained herself and she, tried things out, and she's doing it for a living now. But she had to go through that learning curve as well. There is, like I said, a place for natural skill, but she's learned and grown so much as a graphic designer through just going through that process. And I think myself included have underestimated just going through that process.
Mm-hmm. There's something that Brian Eno from Roxy Music, he talks a lot about the idea of there's no such thing as a genius. There's only ever something called a genius. So if you look at all the greats throughout history, they are great because they've surrounded themselves with people that are like-minded. They've surrounded themselves with, like, Leonardo da Vinci was around a lot of other amazing, talented people, and it pulled together and it ended up being the forefront and the one that's called a genius. Like, same with all the other greats throughout history. They've not just come out of nowhere. They've been surrounded by a group of very talented people. You have to surround yourself with these people. So how can we start, Ankush? How can we start meeting people? How can we start getting into the right groups of social groups? How can we not be scared anymore? How can we move forward?
I think it's a great question, and what I often say to people, it's not really a how-to issue. It's not a how-to issue. It's more about wanting to, because, like I said, all the how-tos you ever could need are on Google. So anything that I can say, that there'll be 100 more ideas, good ideas on Google that you can research right now. You don't need me to tell you about that. But what I can share with you is about, do you really want to? I had a conversation with a guy yesterday, and he was telling me, I want to do this, but I don't know how to. I don't know how to. And what I really challenged him was, is that really true? And I guess this is part of coaching. When I really delved into it a little bit, what we discovered was he wasn't really sure that he wanted to. That's why. And when we're not sure that we really want to have good relationships, when we're not really sure we want to be, a creative person, when we're not really sure we want to whatever, we then fool ourselves by telling ourselves it's a how-to issue.
I love that.
More often than not, it really, really isn't. It's never a how-to. And, if you're listening to this and you think you've got a how-to issue, look inside yourself and go, is that really the case? Because I remember when I was a child, and I use children as an example because they're so good at, just relating and communicating. They're great teachers for us. But if you wanted something, I know I was like this. If you wanted an ice cream and your mother said, all right, just give me 2 minutes, you would pester her. You wouldn't wait. You wouldn't think, I don't know how to get my mom to get me this ice cream. You'd want it. You'd find a way. Kids are great at that. I'm sure there's people listening here. There must be one area of your life where there's something that you really wanted to do and you wouldn't take no for an answer, or you've gone that extra mile. And that's so much more powerful, because you can have all the how-tos in the world, and even having all the how-tos in the world, you can kind of just get information overload and just get stuck. But you can have very little how-to knowledge, but just really have this strong desire to do something, and you can make it work. And we see this in the world of entrepreneurs. We see this in people who really didn't have money, they didn't have a network or anything else, and then they just really become successful. Why? Because perhaps they've just come from such a tough place. They're like, I really want that. And I've seen that both, out in the world, and I've seen it, quite close to me, people that have done that.
I've spoke recently with my friend Charlie McGing in an interview, the interview before this one. What happens a lot in the fitness industry is people they look for motivation to get into, say, fitness, whereas it's the absolute wrong approach to be doing it. It's more of a commitment that you need to be putting on yourself. That's where you should be relying on yourself. Like, motivation is just like an emotion, right? And I guess that's the same with looking for a how-to, committing yourself to doing it, or in your case, saying, I want to do this. That's what's going to take you to that next step.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with Charlie around I think motivation is completely overrated.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of gives you an extra step. It's like, even within this, if someone's like, well, I need to be motivated to have better relationships. No, you don't. You're just putting something in the way of you taking action, right? And motivation's become this big thing. How do I increase my motivation? Sometimes I'm not motivated to do loads of stuff, but I do it. And when I really don't want to do it, I'll use motivation as an excuse. That's the truth. And it's been really helpful for me to see that I might need all these things, but motivation isn't one of them. So it's just doing that. I mean, coming back to your previous question about what do people do? We live in such a connected world. It's really easy to connect with people. Don't expect everyone to want to connect back with you. If you go into this thinking, oh, I want to connect with my favorite idol from my profession, don't expect that they'll contact you back. They might not. But, there's so many people to connect with that if you just go and put yourself out there, you'd be surprised. And I'm a living proof of that I run my own podcast on relationships, and I interview a really specific group of people who didn't know who I was, who were very, very successful, had decades of experience. I was a new coach. And in that whole time, I've interviewed over 30 people now, and I've only had 2 people come back and say no. And so many people come back and ask me, they go, how did you get all these great people on your podcast? The truth is, I just asked. There's no big secret. And there is something around, once I've got a few people on my podcast, that it becomes easier because, you have a certain amount of credibility. But even then, it's amazing the power of just asking. And it's true in relationships. When we were kids, I remember just going up to the next door neighbor and saying, hey, do you want to come out and play? It was really as simple as that.
So do you think, like, in this adult life, do you think we overcomplicate things then? What kind of blocks are we putting in place then? What's keeping us back from wanting to just go approach a random stranger or somebody that we want to get in on the in-group of something? What's keeping us back?
It is just our thinking. I used to spend an awful lot of time in my head overanalyzing life. I don't know if anyone else can relate to that. And that was a thing that really held me back. And I spend a lot less time doing that, or I catch myself when I'm doing it.
Oh, that's good.
And it's not that hard to work out. If you see yourself not taking action, if you say you want to do something, you see yourself not taking action, you're probably spending so much time in your head. And we talked about this the other day, Jason, where it actually uses a lot of energy to try and decide to do something. When you're in your head and you're using your neocortex basically to decide, should I do this or should I do that? It's really energy intensive. It's far more efficient just to make a decision. And sometimes, as a rule of thumb, you're more often than not better off just making a decision rather than procrastinating over it. Now, I'm not saying, don't look before you leap, as they say. I'm not saying just make snap decisions all the time, but in yourself, when you've given something thought and you're just going round in a circle, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I go and approach that person at a party? Should I ask this person to come on my podcast or collaborate with me in this creative venture? When you're overthinking it. We all know that. And when you get to that stage, it's better just to go, right, put it all out of my head and just act. And it might be scary. It does take a bit of courage. I love the quote around courage, which is, people confuse courage with being fearless, but they're totally different things, right? This is a very descriptive metaphor. Fear is wetting your pants, and courage is doing what you need to do in wet pants.
I love that. Wow, that's good. That's awesome, man. I've got a similar one where I've always thought that people always make a big deal about confidence. People always say, oh, I can't do that, I'm not confident at it. Well, confidence is just situational competence. The only people that ever have confidence at something is because they've done it that much that they feel in tune with it. They feel like they are competent at doing that in that situation. Whenever you're not feeling confident, it's only because you've not done it enough yet. Like if you just do it more, you're going to be confident at it. It might not be tomorrow that you're confident. It might not be next month that you're confident, but keep doing, and eventually you become confident.
Absolutely. Confidence is earned. It's not an innate trait that we're born with.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Amazing. So I just want to take it back to what I said earlier with what I hear so much in the creative fields is this idea that it's all about who you know. Like for my audience at home, they need to start meeting people. So is there any kind of actionable steps that these can be taken towards putting people in their lives?
That's a great question, Jason. There are a couple of things I want to talk about. One is authenticity, and the other one is service. So if I talk about authenticity first, there are so many people who are looking to go out and build a tribe, build a network, build a fan base. Everyone's on all these different social media. And I was talking to someone who's got a big tribe themselves at the moment, and they were really, really frustrated that they're like, oh, I love what I do for a living. I love my profession, but I've now got to be on all these different media channels. I've now got to connect with all these audiences. I've got to do all this stuff. And for me, I disagree with that. So when a new bit of social media comes out, I don't jump on that and then jump on the next thing and then jump on the next thing. But what I do is I really make sure whatever I share, I'm not doing it to get likes. I'm not doing it to get people to follow me back. It's a trap that we can fall into. But I'm really, really aware of that as the thing that in the long term is going to connect me to my audience is being authentic, being real, and sharing things that maybe are a little bit more scary, a little bit more dangerous. For me, that as a coach, that's sharing things that are on my mind that aren't perfect. It's sharing things about where I've not seen it right, because it's tempting to be perfect. If I was a musical artist, it would maybe be sharing things that you're working on right now. And it's those things that really connect us to other people. It's that real authentic self.
Even influences people that you're into. It doesn't have to even be your own music. Just something that keeps you grounded within a certain pocket of people that's communicating, or like you say, authentically. This is what I like. I'm sure you guys like this too. Blah blah blah. Definitely, I love the idea of authenticity.
Yeah, because it really has to be you. It can't be, because I see a lot of marketers who come around and very innocently, I'm not saying they're bad people, but very innocently are going, right, in order to be big, you need to do this, 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 and this. There's the adverts, get 10,000 fans, get this, get that. But I personally feel it's not really helpful. And a lot of people are spending a lot of time doing that and not really connecting with people. And it sometimes looks like they're doing well, but they aren't. Really, it's quite shallow. And when you look at people that really do well, it's because they are so authentically themselves. Now, I'm really loath to mention X Factor, because for a bunch of creatives that they may hate that, they may hate the show. My dad loves it, and I don't watch it anymore. But years and years ago, I watched it. And even on that show, which people criticize for being fake and, tailor-made pop artists, there was a guy who went through, didn't make it through, and then came back a few years later, again got through to the final stages just before the live shows. You could see he had gone and done everything that he should have done. He'd got the look right, he'd gone to an image consultant, he'd got vocal lessons. He was trying to be what people were telling him to be. And there were other people who weren't quite polished, who were a bit more raw, and they were the ones that got through to the final. And this guy got shot down a second time. And you could totally understand it, because you didn't feel, or I didn't feel when I watched that guy, we didn't see him. We didn't really see who he was. And I know I put a lot of videos out there in the world, and people comment that the ones that they really like are the ones that are a bit more raw, a bit more like what I really feel, the ones that are a little bit more unpolished. those are the ones that really connect with others. And I think that's really powerful for anyone listening to this to create an audience, is share what you really like, or what you don't like. If someone's going on about some artist or some creative or something, and everyone's like, oh, this is the best, you don't like it, say it, because someone's going to turn around and go, thank God someone else thinks like me.
Mm-hmm.
There's 7 billion people on the planet. We've got access to probably half of them on social media and growing. And we don't need to connect with all, 3.5 billion that are there. We really don't.
No. So you think it's more important to just zone in on a small target group of people rather than trying to get to everyone? I mean, we've all seen these people with like thousands and thousands and thousands of likes, but is that actually going anywhere? Is that going towards helping making them a living? I don't think it is it? One band that really comes to mind is Pearl Jam. I don't know, do you know Pearl Jam?
I've heard of them, yeah.
They can put out like 12 records a year and sell those records, but that's because they've got such a core audience of people that buy into what it is that they do, and it feels like they're having a two-way dialogue. I think this idea of having a conversation with your audience, that comes with having a relationship, with your audience or with people that you're working with.
Yeah, if any of this is resonating with people, I would really recommend a book called Show Your Work.
Sure, yeah. Austin
Kleon, that's it, yeah. I really love that book. It talks about a lot of these things that I'm mentioning, and I see it to be absolutely true. So that goes into a lot more detail, but that's a great book for people to read if any of this is resonating with them.
Yeah, sure.
The second thing I wanted to talk about was service. A lot of people, when we're talking about networking, a lot of people, when they go out and network, this is typically what 95% of people do at networking events when they think of networking. Let me go out and find people that can benefit me and see what I can get. And it's all about take. The best people that I've seen at networking, and I've coached people around this. I had a client who was networking, having lots of conversations, and none of them would lead anywhere. And we changed this one thing, and she started totally getting different feedback, different relationships, and started getting clients as well, right? And the one thing was changing the mindset from trying to get clients, trying to get favors, trying to get something from the networking meetings to what can I give? And it's massive. It's absolutely massive. If you turn into that person that is serving, that is helpful, that is helping others, it's so rare, especially nowadays. And again, if you go to any networking meeting, typically there will be one or two people who are doing this, who are really helpful, and they're the ones that are getting the most out of the networking event. They're the ones with the most clients, the biggest networks, everything. And everyone else is trying to take. Now, people look at the people who are giving and going, oh, well, it's all right for them because they're already successful. But they don't realize it's because they do that they are so successful at networking.
Mm-hmm. I've got a good friend who I interviewed the other day called Bob Wynn. He was networking with a drum company. He's a drum teacher. The company had an issue where they didn't have any video clips or any sound clips of their product. Now, he went out on his own back, took some kits, booked studio time off his own back, actually with me, booked some studio time, filmed some videos, recorded some really nice sounding audio for the company, took it back to the company, and they were shocked. They were just bowled over by the idea that this guy had given so much to the company for nothing. They didn't charge them any money. It was just, I've done this for you. So it's a present, it's a gift. And they were shocked, and because of that, he's got a lifetime relationship now with this company that's like, people had give the left nut to be a part of, but that's just because he's just given. He's not taken, he's given, and then they mutually can come together and be very proficient together.
And I'm realistic as well. I'm not going to say you do this and suddenly everyone's going to be like, oh, thanks, we're going to be your best mate. There are some people out there that will take. You give and they will take, and they don't give anything in return. But as a mindset, as a way of being in the world, having this giving mindset, having this service mindset always comes back. Now, the world is moving this direction anyway, right? People now are coming to expect more and more for free in whatever field it is. And a lot of traditional artists, creatives, business people are really lamenting the fact they're like, oh, this is so bad. But the truth is, for decades, people who have been really, really good are already been doing this. They're already giving their customers so much, their clients so much, their fans so much up front, that those are the ones that people really connect with. And when I look back at my own life, those are the people I connected with. If I was spending money in any area of my life, I'm more likely to spend money with the company, with the person who's already been helping me in whatever way.
Yeah, definitely. That goes back to having like fan letters from bands in the old days. Like you'd write to your favorite band and they'd write back, and you'd be addicted to that band for the rest of your life because you've got this kind of connection. The idea that you used to copy cassettes, you'd always find out about your favorite band from having a cassette copied by your friend, but then you'd go and buy it. You'd go buy the record or whatever. I think that still holds true more than ever now with the digital age. I know that the vinyl market has like increased so much. People are actually buying physical vinyl records now than what they've ever done since since 70s or something. And that's just because there's so much there free, but then people want the physical real thing as well. There's always a core audience that you're speaking to that wants to buy into that creative art that you've done. I really believe in that so much.
And again, if you want to see an example of this, and whatever you think about her music, check out Taylor Swift. She did something a year and a half ago called Swiftmas. And what she did was she went out from her own money. She bought presents for some of her fans, wrapped them themselves. She's made a little video on YouTube and sent it to them. And to one person right at the end, she turns up at their house with this kind of like really expensive, those little cars that look like Mercedes or something, for this fan's kid. Now that is incredible. That is really, forget replying to fan mail. That's really going over and above. And guess what? Taylor Swift is one of the richest singers in the world. Now, a lot of people say, well, it's all right for her because she's so big now. But I believe that it's because she's had that mindset. She must have had that mindset all the way through. It's no coincidence that she's become so big.
I fully agree. So authenticity and providing a service, providing value is like really what people should be taking away from this interview. Is there anything else that I've not asked you that you'd like to get across to my audience, Ankush? I think like you've done an amazing job, like eloquently describing what we should be doing.
I'll just say that, what we've talked about today, we said at the start before we started recording, we had no idea where this interview is going to go. Every time I get interviewed, I have no idea what I'm going to say. And we talk about things that I didn't think about. There's loads more I could talk about. I'd love to come back on your show if you'd have me. But no, I think that's a good place to kind of leave it for today.
That is a good place, but ironically, you've just like said a really other important fact, and that's being able to be fluid with conversation, to be able to go anywhere. Like some people go into conversations with people and trying to network and meet people with a fixed agenda. They want something out of it, and I guess that's the taking aspect of it. But to be flexible and fluid, like I guess like what we've just done in the interview, I've not got something scripted, you've not got something scripted, but we've both come away with something that we can be happy with, I think it's really important. I'll put links in the show notes towards your webpage, your Facebook, whatever you want. It's all going to be there. Are you working on anything at the minute?
There is one thing that I'm working on. I don't know if it'd be suitable for your audience, and I'm not sure when this is going to go out, but at the moment, like I said, I work a lot with men. And so I've got my next Powerful Men's Immersion coming up in April. In that, we really go in depth. I do a lot of stuff for free. I do these interviews. I like to give a lot of value to people. And then when I do things, I try and do things that are really quite impactful and different. So, I'm working with a group of men over 4 days. And we're really going to go in depth what it means to be powerful to them. It'll be different for each of them. It's for a small group, but yeah, that's what I'm working on at the moment. I'm really quite excited by it.
Cool, Ankush. Thanks very much. Great job.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Man. So that was a pretty sweet episode. I love that part where he likened our creativity to being like a child. He's right. Every kid wants to show their work, and it's not until later on in life that we decide that we're not good enough to be an artist or a musician, etc. Usually our own beliefs can be pretty harsh and hold us like a prisoner. Unfiltering ourselves and connecting to our inner child can have us uncovering our natural abilities to both connect in relationships and be more creative in our work. Something that we both talk about a lot is quantity versus quality. Here, Ankush proves that providing quality over quantity avoids making shallow connections and gives more to a lifetime customer by having an abundance of authenticity. I'm glad I was able to make this episode. I hope you got a lot out of it. I really enjoyed it too. Be sure to check out Ankush on his website, ankushjain.co.uk. Also check out his Relationship Series podcast on iTunes and on YouTube. I'll post a link in the show notes for you to check out. Also, show your support and subscribe in my YouTube, iTunes and Stitcher. I make this content to help creative people in the areas that I've struggled the most in my career. If you feel like you're struggling with yours, or you feel like you've overcome such a huge hurdle in your productive performance, then guess what? I'd love to hear about it. So get in touch, like and follow me on Facebook. Let's have a chat about how we can bring out the best creative in you and in others. Cheers. Bye.